again, we send out swatches like this. So, and then with that, to the store, a consumer will come into the store, they get measured and they pick out all the details, the buttons they might want, if they want monograms, if they want hidden button downs on the collar, whatever little variables in terms of the make of the shirt. They then go to what we have like a vendor portal online where they then submit the order. The order comes into us. We then generate a pattern from our CAD system we use called Gerber technology. That creates a digital marker, and then the order goes to our spreading floor. They know they have to spread 2 yards, 9 inches, whatever's needed for that particular customer. And then it comes over to these 2 cutting tables.
Now, where's your store located?
We don't have a brick and mortar.
Got it. On the online store,
we don't do e-commerce B2C,
Yep.
technically. I mean, people do buy directly from us, but we're more of a wholesale manufacturing. So stores like Rothman's in New York City,
they'll pick out the trends.
they'll do all that stuff. They submit the order to us, we produce it.
Got it.
Sometimes we put their label, sometimes we use our label.
Got it.
So the orders, they get spread here, and then they come to the cutting tables. And then this particular cutting table cuts 1 or 2 shirts at a time. That table over there can cut as many as 40 shirts at one time. Again, for one customer. So every customer...
Custom size.
Custom size. So custom size and styling and every other thing you can imagine. So but we cut 1 shirt, you'll see, and then we cut 6 shirts, we cut 10 shirts, but it's always for one particular customer. The hand cutting on the production floor, on the cutting floor, where we do things like inner linings, and if a guy wants contrasts inside the collar, or if we have to match or balance fronts. So, there's still a ton of hand cutting that goes on. And then from cutting, it queues up, starts at the top. So if you're familiar with Kanban, lean manufacturing, lean manufacturing is more of like on mass production. But even though we're dealing with 1s and 2s, it's still that Kanban, TPS kind of labor.
The thesis applies.
So,
yeah.
Exactly. So every order then comes into the floor and gets, this is a collar paper. So right now, all this is the collars for 1 shirt for this particular account in St. Louis. So it's 1 shirt for a man named Glenn Ray's. And then somewhere his cuffs are. So what they do is they fuse the collars and cuffs. So this is a wing collar. So they fuse it, they put that inner lining on it, which gives the collar its body. And then they do the same thing to the cuffs. While that's happening, labels are being sewn into the shirts. While that's happening, sleeve faces are being made. So here's just, this is a repair. So here's a cuff paper. So again, this is one customer, an account in Rochester, New York. Again, it's 1 shirt, cuffs, has a monogram paper. So every operation gets done individually. Not one person doesn't sit and make an entire shirt.
And you also do repairs.
Yeah, you have to.
You have to. I love that. Why do you have to?
Well, because mistakes
they
happen.
paid for it.
Well,
oh, right.
Accidents happen.
Right,
We
as
make
you're
mistakes.
producing it. So that's not a customer repair, but...
Oh, so, no, that's a customer repair. Yeah,
Okay.
he might have. The Federal Trade Commission, or the World, I guess WHO, mandated 30% less chemical usage in the finishing of cotton, woven cottons. As a result, there's less stabilization for us in the manufacturing process. So when we cut a 35 sleeve, we used to know it was going to shrink to 34 and a half. Now we're getting 35s that stretch to 36. We're getting 34s that shrink to 32 and a half. So it's a nightmare for us.
So that's an ancillary consequence of policy.
Oh, it was a horrible thing for us. And especially our consumers, because people who buy custom know they have a left sleeve that's longer than the right, or they know they have a shoulder that's lower than the other. So when they come back from a dry cleaner, they experience the shirt differently than what they originally got. So it's
And they know.
over the few holes today too, by the way, because we just got back from a week vacation. So there's a lot of our people who are still traveling, visiting friends, family.
It's pretty full to me, but yeah, I imagine it's even fuller.
Yeah, we usually have 105 people here.
Okay.
So at every workstation, they're doing different operations. So up here at the front, this is nothing, but you'll see like random shirt parts, a front panel, a back panel, maybe a pocket being put on, maybe a collar being made. And then, excuse me. So, here's just collars again, just waiting. Once the collars are done being made, they'll then get attached to the bodies at the different, when that stage is ready. Here she's probably making unders over here, making fronts. Anyway, so the shirts kind of work their way down the line in that Kanban, and like I said, manufacturing capacity. So here's just sleeves. So this is a store in Sudbury, Massachusetts, and excuse me, the sleeves, with the sleeve facing the buttonhole, it's just sitting waiting for the shirt to come along the line, further assembled. After the collars get joined, then they set the sleeves in. Here is a neck sloping, so we actually cut our neck holes by hand. So again, once all those collars are done, they come up here and they sit at this station. Once the neck holes get cut, then the collars get matched up to the bodies. Then they queue up over here for the next process. So again, as you look here, it's the parts starting to look more like a shirt. So, so they have to set the sleeves, but this is, this is the shell of a shirt. Front, yoke, and the back, and the sleeves are attached here, but the collar's on it. So once it's closed up, then they add the cuffs, which queue up over there. Make sense?
Yep.
Setting cuffs, closing sides, hemming the bottoms, then sewing the buttons on. And then once the shirt is assembled, it's marked. So that's the 2 buttonholes where the buttons will go. So again, but it's all labeled up, ready to go. And then after the buttons go on, it gets QC'd over here where we check measurements. So again, we know we cut a 35 sleeve. We know what we ship, but sometimes it's dry cleaning problems. Sometimes it's because of these, there's a million variables that happen. But then after it gets QC'd, it goes to trimming where they cut off all the loose threads and such, then pressing, and then from pressing to folding. So this is, there you go.
Love it.
Yeah,
and you
so,
even put the date.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, born on dating, right? So anyway, so the shirts get queued up over here for folding, and then if there are button downs, we mark the button down real quick. Every button down gets marked just like this. And then goes back over there, gets the buttonholes put on it, or buttons put on it. And Myrna.
Beautiful.
That's no good. But little things like that we'll look for, and we'll either clean it or cut a new front. No good. Mm-hmm. And then here's to the shipping table. We ship probably 80% with like FedEx, and I get with so this is just a traditional roll button down for a guy down in North Carolina that buys shirts direct from us.
Beautiful.
So, and that's
He's
pretty much
one of your sort of few directs to complete.
Yeah, we do. I mean, if we make roughly 70,000 shirts a year,
Yep.
we probably sell 1,000 to 1,500 direct to consumers. It's not
And you're not advertising it.
We don't seek it. But every once in a while, someone's unhappy with the guy they bought shirts from,
right.
or their tailor died and they don't want to find somebody else, or
you have a relationship with them.
Yeah, we try to.
Yeah.
So
long term, I imagine people take it's like a hairdresser.
Oh yeah, no, we have. I mean, I've got guys we've been making shirts for 20 years. It's just some, you become good friends with people.
Yeah. And
So.
when they gain weight or lose weight, I'm sure.
We have guys who have their fat shirts and skinny shirts.
Yeah, they're like, this year it's the other measurement.
Exactly, go up or go down. So it's that's pretty much the gist of it.
Love it. So I have it on record. A little bit about yourself and the business, like
me or the business.
Both, because you have the last name on the business, but a different.
Do you want to go inside
name.
the office, or
yeah,
you want to stay here?
Do that.
Well, the Gambert factory, my grandfather in 1933 started the business. Back in the 30s, every city had a custom shirt guy, a custom suit guy, a custom hat guy, a custom shoe guy. So every city had somebody who serviced that market. And in 1930s, the late 20s, my grandfather worked for a shirt maker in New York City, realized there was nobody in New Jersey, came out to New Jersey with like a $600 loan from his mother that he was sworn to pay back and never tell his father about. And he started up a small shop up on Springfield Avenue in Newark, and just started making shirts.
So started in New Jersey.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Newark, always Newark.
Okay.
And then in the 1960, 58, somewhere around there, 58, 59, my father, Mel, graduated from college with a business degree. Always grew up in the shirt factory with his four brothers, or three of his brothers. The three older brothers all went into military service. My Uncle Joe was fought in World War II as well as Vietnam and Korea. My Uncle Duke served in the Army. My Uncle David was in the Marines. So they all saw action in some capacity through those years. My father couldn't, he had a heart condition, so he just learned the business. And then as the brothers all came home from military service in the 60s, they all came into the business. My grandfather passed, I believe, around 1970. I always forget the year, somewhere in that neighborhood. And then after my grandfather passed, the four brothers split up. So my father and the one oldest brother went off and started their own company. Two other brothers stayed together. And then eventually they split up, and then one of their children left, came and worked for my father for a short time in the 80s. And then in 1994, he started, or 92, somewhere out there, started his own business. So at one time, there were three Gambert factories.
Three different Gambert.
All doing the exact same thing. Were they competing? Oh, yeah, we all did. Well, we competed in the sense that we all made the same exact product.
Okay.
But there was always, my cousin Skip was always the just pure efficiency factory. You needed stuff fast. You didn't go outside the lines. You just got what you got. My Uncle Duke just focused on pure quality, and that was all he and my cousin Sue did. It was just best buttons, best fabrics. They didn't care about the lower price point people. We kind of my father focused on sort of being all things to all people. Tried to get it out faster sometimes, supplied better fabrics, but also supplied opening price points. He kind of became the factory that never said no.
He was more bespoke to whatever the client wanted.
Everybody did bespoke in their own way, but he ran his business in a bespoke manner, more so. Just always trying to accommodate what was being asked of.
Do you think that was his personality?
It's definitely who he is.
Yeah.
And it took on his, sure, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And then around 2012, I believe, my Uncle Duke passed away, and his daughter Sue ran her shop for a short time, a couple years after that, and then she went on to start to work with my other cousin. That was around 2014. The two of them joined together, and then 2020, right before COVID, January of that year, maybe, or maybe December of 19. My cousin my cousin Skip and I got together, and Sue and my parents, we all had dinner one night and talked about possibly merging the two existing businesses because our buildings were being torn down and nobody knew what was going on. And then we realized it was logistically difficult to try to merge the two businesses at that time, but we said, let's keep the door open. It was the first time we ever really broke bread in 20-something years. So it was
meaningful.
It was an interesting conversation. And then, that's my son. Let me answer this real quick. Okay, so Sue joined my cousin Skip, the two of them merged, and then, like I said, around 2020, we talked about remerging the businesses. Then COVID happened. We moved here on March 8th of 20. We started our move, on March 8th. We were ready to reopen on March 18th. That Wednesday, we got a phone call from the mayor's office saying we're going to shut the city down for 2 weeks. And I shut down that Thursday, Friday, and then that Monday I came back and started making masks. And it didn't make money, but it kept the business moving at least. And then during that time, my cousin Skip never reopened his shop. I wound up buying his business in July of 20. We bought his business. And then, and now here we are. So my personal history, I went to college only for 1 year up in Connecticut. Wasn't mentally right for it. Was too immature, I suppose. Mm-hmm. Then I moved to Boston. I joined the laborers union, poured concrete for about 5 years. Then I had a job accident where I tore my leg up, was out of work for a year. Then I got into sales, doing recruiting and then selling third-party transportation systems, variable message signs, that type of thing. And then 9/11 happened. And then because 9/11, the last company I worked for, which was quite successful, our business just dried up completely at the time. And I kind of didn't know what I was going to do. But then I was thinking to myself, I grew up in this business as a kid, always summers, weekends, doing odd jobs here. And I called my parents up in October of 2001 and said, I'd like to consider moving back to New Jersey. I was in Boston at the time. And they said, let's give it a shot. I've been here ever since. So that's it.
Interesting. So tell me about sort of what you see in terms of, like, what's the most frustrating part? Let me start there. What's the most frustrating part of being a U.S. manufacturer?
Where do I start?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, give me 1/2 a second.
Yeah.
Let me just make sure everything's sustainable or, like, I know that 90% of the clothing that gets dropped in bins winds up in landfill or mattress fill, right?
Yep.
But for, like, our shirts become non-recyclable because of the thread that's used is a polycore, so it's a polyester core, so it's not biodegradable because of the thread that we use to sew the shirt together.
Yeah.
Or the plastic buttons or the inner lining, that, you know what I mean?
That's changing, though. They're working on technology to solve that, and they're also operationally figuring out how to rapidly cut that stuff off.
Yeah, and that's fine with me. But
Yeah.
as I told you before,
Yeah.
with the 30% reduction in chemical usage in the finishing of cotton, it has other implications on our end as manufacturers.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna add, that was kind of gonna be my next question. Like, are just frustrations around U.S. manufacturing, and positive stories too, but also ways in which policy has played a role in changing your industry for better or worse.
Well, frustrations in American manufacturing, I would say, labor pool.
Yeah.
And, you know, there aren't too many suburban housewives that want to move or travel from, you know, Livingston or West Caldwell to come to Newark to sew shirts.
Yeah.
So the status, the employee, the legal status of some people, we've had conversations with immigrations, this being a sanctuary city, Newark, it's a little bit insulated, but it's difficult. We have to get 3 proofs of identification from anybody. It's not our jobs to vet them, but it's our jobs to get 3 pieces of identification that they can work. And then, but then you have people that frequently will go home because their father died in Ecuador and they have to travel, then they can't get back, and you lose a good employee. Again, you have people who have health problems, and you want to do the best you can to help them, but you can't always. That on just the human level, that's a major frustration of labor, simply put. If I bring in cotton under $800, if I import goods under $800, I don't have to pay any duties or tariffs on it. So it's a stupid game. But if I buy over $800, I have to pay duties. And it's scalable. So for me as a manufacturer, I'm paying my city taxes, I'm paying my state taxes, I'm paying my federal taxes, I'm paying my payroll taxes. I don't mind paying taxes. I understand that it's a part of operating a business.
But paying tariffs to
import. I pay all these taxes to produce here, my real estate taxes, all these taxes I gotta pay. But then when I bring in an order of goods, and if it's a 60s quality fabric, I pay 9% duties on it. If it's a 120s quality, I pay 14% duties on it.
And is that quality of fabric?
So the better the quality of the fabric, the higher the duties I pay. If I buy linen, because it's not from cotton, it's from flaxseed, I pay 22% duties on it. Whereas, if I said, I'm not going to manufacture in New Jersey anymore, I'm going to fire 105 people, I'm not going to pay any more rent, I'm not going to do anything, I'm just going to have a little bit of an office in my home, I'm going to submit all my orders, and I'm going to farm them out, whether it's to Mexico, to China, to Vietnam, wherever I want to. I pay a flat duty of 19% on the goods that I bring in, the finished good that I bring in. So whether it's a 60s ply shirt or it's a 170s ply shirt, I pay 19% on it made. I don't pay any of the taxes on anything else except to bring it in, and then I resell it. So it's not fair. And I'll tell you, NAFTA did me no good, because I can import from Canada and I can import from Mexico, but if I ship a finished product into Canada, at the border, the Canadian government taxes their merchants 14% VAT tax. So if it's $100, they're paying another $14, and that's significant in retail markups. So it's not a level playing field. It's a very frustrating dynamic. We've had, this cotton, the issue with the 30% less chemical treatment in fabric. So the reason they use chemicals to finish cotton, they used to do something called sanforizing fabric. So when they sanforized it, they would get the cotton, they'd make the woven material, they would take basically a hot rubber press, steam the fabric, press it on there, and that it shocked the cotton, and it stopped it from growing or shrinking any more than it would. It was a natural 2 to 3% shrinkage yield. So we knew you could set a watch to it, you were always going to get a 1/2 inch shrinkage per yard, right? Then they realized, if we just basically chemical and treat it with ammonia for the most part, it does the same thing that sanforizing did within reason. It's less expensive. It was a way for the mills to cut costs. And it sped up production times. Well, now with this 30% reduction in chemical usage, we don't know what we're going to get. I have fabrics that you knew were consistently never shrank, never stretched, never did anything. Now they're stretching. I had fabrics that you knew used to stretch. Now they're shrinking. It's all over the place. And what it does is it gives our industry, people start saying, well, you don't know what you're doing anymore. What are you doing? Why are you making mistakes?
Quality's gone
And
down.
no matter how many times I say, it's not us, it's the same sewers, it's the same cutters, it's the same mills. But at the end of the day, the consumer, they don't care. The consumer's paying $300, $400, $500 a shirt. They don't want to hear excuses. They just want their shirts to measure what they measure. And then it becomes a very frustrating, becomes contentious almost. And we lose business over it.
Yeah.
I will tell you, logistically, as a U.S. manufacturer, there are no mills in the United States, virtually none. I just found one in Pennsylvania that I'm going to go visit at the end of the month. But they do very little production. There's another mill in North Carolina, but again, it's small production. There's cotton grown all over the United States, the South, but it all gets shipped out to Asia. Nobody in the United States is investing in making it. So the problem is, when I bring in goods, forget all the duties and such, but if I've had 4 shipments that come in from the Czech Republic from one of our top mills that we buy from. The 4 invoices on these were, one was for $35,000, one was for $27,000, one was for $18,000, and one was for $16,000. These 4 invoiced shipments got stuck sitting in JFK, the port of receiving at JFK one got stuck for 7 weeks, one was stuck for 5 weeks, one was stuck for 3 weeks, one was stuck for, I think, 4 weeks. Because they couldn't scan the barcode, even though it's a QR reader with the invoice information on it. They couldn't figure out what they were supposed to do, because you have fabrics that are all different variances in qualities. Some are hundreds, some are this. So they didn't know how to apply the duties. And because people weren't doing their jobs properly, I'm stuck waiting for my goods to come in. I have no duties. The tariffs were created to protect American mills. That's what they created those duties for, was to protect American mills down south, North Carolina, South Carolina, Atlanta, Arkansas, Mississippi, the mills that actually made cotton, they made woven goods. The duties were created so that manufacturers wouldn't buy from Europe, wouldn't buy from Asia. Asia wasn't even a thing. But now there's no mills left, yet the duties persist, and there's my probably biggest gripe.
Yeah. It's such a web of issues that each seems like that would be your number one sort of.
They're all number one.
Yeah.
I mean, you deal with 100 people. You're bringing in. We produce 1,500 shirts a week. Thread. There's everything. There is nothing domestically manufactured. There's jobbers who warehouse stuff, but what should cost me $5 a spool costs me $15 a spool, because the guy who's warehousing it, I understand.
Right.
I understand supply and demand, and he's got to rent space, and he's got to put a place, and he's got to have somebody go in and pull it off the shelf and restock his inventory. I get it, but there's nobody. But he has to make a living on what he's doing. But there's nobody in the States that does this, that makes anything. So I'm constantly paying a 2-point markup on every product that I want to buy.
So why still do it? Why not shut this all down and have an office that you just outsource all the manufacturing?
Because I'm really proud that we're one of the last American manufacturers doing what we do. Mm-hmm. We just celebrated 91 years of business, through a few iterations. I love that American flag. I love having an American flag in my shirts. I drive American cars. I buy American when I can. Mm-hmm. It matters to me.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, people don't shop with their patriotism. They shop with their wallets. Mm-hmm. But I've kind of taken on take it or leave it. If you want, there's a ton of advantages to working with an American manufacturer. There's real-time conversation. You can call me at 9 o'clock in the morning. You could be in California at 6 a.m. Call me. You'll still get me on the line. You can call me from California at 6 p.m. You still might get me to pick up my phone. I'm in this shop every day, literally on the floor, walking, talking to people, saying this is good, this is no good, fix this, ship that. And I think it matters. And relationships, it's like, you know, I enjoy what I do. And again, we have people here who come first generation immigrants and their kids go on to become, we've had, in the last 10 years, there's 5 kids who've gone on to become pharmacists and 1 who's become a lawyer. So, you know, that's, I don't get too fuzzy and warm about that kind of thing, but it does matter. And it's contributing to society. It's contributing to the greater good, I think. And it's, you know, like this is, like I said before when we were talking, we are becoming a service-oriented nation. All anybody wants to do is say, yeah, I can get that for you. I can get that for you. I like doing. I like the manufacture. I like, you know, when COVID happened and we shifted to making masks. We even made some surgical gowns for some people. We made a lot of different random products. And that was like, we actually, as a result of that, I actually turned down a contract to make 1 million pillowcases. And I could have pivoted completely the manufacturing process here and gone off and just kept making, but stopped making pillowcases perhaps. But I like making shirts. It's a fun business for me. And again, it's my family's legacy. I have 3 kids. Maybe one day one of my kids will take it on. That'd be a nice thing. But right now I'm just focused on me.
Love it. Who do you dress and who have you dressed?
Well, through our dealer base, we've made shirts for pretty much every president back to Nixon, as far as I know. We've made shirts for Obama. We've made shirts for Clinton. We've not made shirts for Trump. He's got his own guy. We've made shirts for the New York Yankees. Joe Torre was a customer. Yogi Berra was a close personal friend of my parents. Shaquille O'Neal we make shirts for. Neil Lane, the designer for K Jewelers, we make shirts for Neil. We've made shirts for a ton of movies, like The Greatest Showman with Hugh Jackman and Zac Efron. We've made shirts for some Wall Street. We made some shirts for. We've made shirts for the New York Giants when they won the 2007 Super Bowl, when they beat the undefeated Patriots, which I love that story. We made a bunch of shirts for offensive linemen because the whole team wore black when they went to the Super Bowl when they flew. So there was about 11 guys that needed black shirts. We've made shirts for, a lot of people.
Yeah.
Sports, celebrities. It's funny, when we make shirts for film, it's often, it's just for like a couple scenes, but every once in a while we'll get a feedback from the stylist. Oh, like Kevin Bacon, for example. We did shirts for him when he was on some HBO or Showtime program, and he's like, I love these shirts, I gotta meet these guys. So we have people like every once in a while that reach out. And local New Jersey people. We have guys on both sides of the law that get shirts here. It's fun. We do have a lot of
very personal.
Yeah, you get. People will trade shirts for sporting events and concerts. We've made, but Pearl Jam's my favorite band. I've made shirts for their manager. It's fun. We do some fun stuff.
I love it. Very cool.